All right, good evening, everyone. It's July 15th. This is the Commission on Police Practices Ad Hoc Training Committee meeting. We don't have too many updates from our last meeting that we had, but we do have our newest member, which is First Vice Chair Dennis Brown. He's a representative of the cabinet. So the nice benefit for us is we'll now have a little bit more feedback directly from the cabinet during our meetings rather than recapping afterwards and looping back. So Dennis, putting you on the spot, do you want to say anything real quick?
Well, real quickly, this has been a real interesting year for me. Our primary responsibility this year was getting the executive director hired, and now that that is done, and for your information too, I was also involved in the interview process that for the police chief. So I've been kind of filled in terms of personnel responsibilities during this year. Uh, by legislation, am supposed to be with this committee, and so I'm here now, and I appreciate you welcoming me here. Um, I will admit that I am way behind and know little about some of the things that you have been involved in. I've read the research and the proposals that you have put forward. And as I indicated the other day, I thought they were outstanding. So I'm here to listen and to learn, at least for the first few weeks. And then after that, I'll probably add a lot more input as we go forward. Um, there was one question I think that you had about the anti-bias training. And one of the positions that the cabinet had was we wanted to include more communities than were represented in the initial recommendation. We noticed that there were no Latinos, Asians, or white communities represented, and we wanted to include them. So the idea that we'd like to put forward is that this would be more of a panel presentation than simply a single organization presentation.
So how would that, I don't know how that would work. Dennis, that was one of my question in the email following that input, because it's a training. It's not
Right.
like I don't like how do you provide because this is supposed to, it's not anti-bias, it's implicit bias training. So it's trying to
Sure.
raise our awareness of what our own biases are, and then provide us with strategies of how to be less biased in the work that we do. And I don't know how you can accomplish that with a panel. I mean, the organizations that we got uh, like we reached out to find out more about it, they I I just I don't get it how it would work.
Okay. Um, I understand more clearly, just even with your definition of what you were looking for. Um, Here, my response to that would be uh, bias or prejudice or racism affects different communities sometimes in different ways. And having the input from various communities would indicate here are some specific instances that are particular to our group. I was meeting with cabinet on Saturday. We had like a 5 hour meeting, which was ridiculous. But I was explaining to them, for example, personally, how there are certain stores that I go into and immediately there's someone following me. One of them is Bloomingdale's in Fashion Valley. If I go in there, and I've done it several times, they've walked in, I've walked in, there's immediately someone assigned to me. And I realize that because I've walked all the way up to the third floor, gone to the bathroom, and the person has followed me in and followed me out. this is something that the other people on the cabinet have never experienced and don't know what it is. This is something that is fairly common to African Americans. And we recognize it and we want to be able to articulate it. There are other discriminations. You know, we had a review last week. I see your hand. We had review of the incident down in the gas lamp, and that you brought forward, and there were some responses to that review. One of the things that we realized, and you know, I asked particularly Paul, who is a former police officer, you know, if that person was not Latino or his woman was not Latino, would the response of that police officer have been the same? Paul admitted no. Gloria admitted no. Both of them said the first response would have been, please take your hands off the bike. That was not something that occurred in that instance. And we talked about, well, was it the aggression of the group? Or was there a, as you say, implicit or explicit categorization of the people who touch the bike as being criminal? And there's often within policing a bias toward people who they are perceived of as criminal or who they perceive as criminal, and their reaction is very different than it would be to some other people who they don't think would be committing a crime. So I think that what we're talking about is indicating that, yes, there are some implicit biases, but those implicit biases affect different groups in different ways. And I think that is why we take the position that there should be more than one individual group that would be making these types of presentations. And Yasmin, I know you have your hand up, so go for it.
So, Brendan, I see you unmuted, and Commissioner Harvey, I'm comfortable waiting until you both go.
I just unmuted because I was drinking water.
Commissioner Harvey, did you want to add anything?
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, First Vice Chair Brown. I kind of want to offer
Call me Dennis, please.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I want to
Okay, thank you very
offer
much.
a background on kind of how this training was. Can you all hear me okay, or is there a lot of background noise? Okay, great. A little bit of background on how this training and some of the work, the things you're actually naming, which are very critical and super important, have been identified. So when we were putting this proposal, even way back before the training committee was formed, the idea was that we always pair, and this is a tradition that really the committee has kind of continued, that we're always going to pair a professional perspective on the subject matter as well as personal experiences. So the idea behind this specific training was we bring in a professional to talk about what does implicit bias actually look like in theory, in reality, what are some of the examples, the case studies we're going through, etc. Also helping folks like identify what are those biases within them, how can they identify them, how are they able to make sure that they can put their biases to the side and do a case review in a non-objective way. And just to give you an example,
A non-objective way or an objective way?
Sorry?
In a non-objective way or an objective way?
In a non-objective way. If I said the opposite, that was not the
No,
intention.
you said that.
Okay. And then just to give you an example, I mean, we haven't worked we haven't really worked super closely with every single group that we sought to get a proposal from to develop some of the actual questions and like description of the workshop. But one example that I would like to share is some of the work, for example, that one of the orgs we were looking at does is intro to, can you all see my screen?
Sure.
Yep.
One, like they do multiple sessions. The one is intro to anti-racism, like mapping the impact of racial ideologies, then internalized racism, interpersonal racism, and institutional racism. So while these are really critical issues that can be articulated by personal experience, stepping back and looking at it from a systematic viewpoint that looks at what is happening in this world as a whole, then doing something like what you're talking about, diving deeper into the personal experiences, I believe would be a lot more powerful and beneficial for folks to learn from. And that's actually how the idea was set up originally. We would bring in the professional, and then following that, we would have a panel of community members from different backgrounds and experiences who would talk about how does that look like in their own personal lives and how does that actually impact them in San Diego specifically. So I just wanted to offer that background for everyone to have kind of an idea of some of the work that, some of the thought process that went into this workshop and some of the work that was kind of foreseen in building up both. Thank you.
Now, just a question, okay? Are we only talking about people ability to evaluate case reviews?
Are you asking about a specific proposal or just in the
Just
idea of
not any particular group, but
Yeah.
is the purpose of this so that people are able to monitor case reviews in a quote non-judgmental way or non-objective way, as you indicated?
Dennis, this particular training is not on our case review list. So it definitely, I think, directly applies to case review, but the topic is much more universal, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really taken back in identifying how does bias show up in this world that we live in. And part of that is racism, because implicit bias is just kind of a different fold of what racism looks like, right? So identifying these different things, learning about how it can be systemic, learning about the different issues and how it impacts different people. And I think the idea here is that we're looking at this from the zoomed out instead of just the personal experience of one person.
Yeah, exactly. That's the diverse group that I was implementing.
Can I have it?
Sure. Oh, how you doing?
Hi. Sorry, guys. I almost forgot. So I forgive me. I kind of got in here kind of late and I understand what you guys are talking about. I have a good example. We were just finishing reviewing a case from Friday, and one of the police officers, I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it, said, ay, 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 to the person that was being detained. The person being detained had a child, you know, and I believe we thought at first he was Hispanic, but he's actually mixed race, Samoan and other. So the police officer is white, you know, female, and she said, ay, 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 ay. And right away it told me like, oh gosh, I've heard that before from other non-Hispanic people, or Hispanic too, but she's white. So that kind of caught me as a racial comment. And so did Christina, agreed with me. And the other person in the group disagreed. So I think, again, it's from a lens when you grow up and you hear people that are not from your culture telling you, ay, 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 you know, like the Frito Bandito. And I thought that was very, that was racial to me. It was. So I And I understand that in a group setting, I mean, there's so many diverse people and different lens, different experiences, but when you come from a background such as a history of racism in this country, you know, it's not like you have a chip on your shoulder. It's like, that's actually what it is, you know, call it what it is. So anyway, I just thought I'd give you an example.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Lozano Diaz. To add to what you just said, I think you named something so important is really identifying like what is the history that we're talking about and how does that impact the systems we live through today. And that's really what that training will also like incorporate is taking it back. It's not just personal experiences. This is a big issue that
Yeah.
impacts us as a society.
Mhm.
And I think one thing that we really wanted to amplify when I was talking to the different agencies that provide this training is our commissioners and our staff are coming from different experiences. They're coming from different backgrounds. They have different understanding of the issue of bias and racism. So it's important to meet everyone where they're at in the content that we're providing and in the method of learning. And every single one affirmed that that's the way they do these workshops. And personally, I've only experienced these workshops through one of these providers, and that's really what my experience was as an attendee. Is they did a phenomenal job at reaching where the audience is and not shaming people, but rather using it as a teaching moment.
What Lupe just shared, and I think where you're going is essentially the thought that we had. There is not always an understanding, particularly with ethnic groups, quote, of what they perceive of as a racist incident. That's why we wanted to have more than one ethnic group, one religious group represented, because it's necessary to get that greater picture. From there, it will enhance our ability to understand situations that we will be confronting in the case reviews a little bit more clearly. When there are things that I hear that personally, and it's not a personal thing, but personally I say, oh, they missed a point here. And it's innocent to a certain extent, but it has an impact on the judgments that are made. And so having that clarity and having that clarity from diverse communities, I think really enhances what I would think that we're trying to have happen in those kinds of situations, in those types of trainings.
So given what Yasmin said and everything that you said, Dennis and Lupe, do you think it would be appropriate to go back to Muslim ARC, which was the most cost-effective and still very comprehensive program, and to ask them to delineate how they would accomplish having the various perspectives in it? Would that satisfy the cabinet? That's my question.
I'm also wondering, and I know Commissioner Harvey wanted to share something, but I'll propose another question to think about. I'm also wondering, Dennis, you mentioned a couple times a specific ethnic or religious group, but I'm wondering what you're referring to, because all the different 6 proposals we've provided, they all focus on implicit bias from like a TEI perspective. They're not focusing on a specific ethnic or religious group. They're just different professionals coming in doing this work from different angles. But the entire focus is diversity, equity, and inclusion focus. It's not necessarily ethnic or religious.
Let me hear from Dwayne, and then I'll respond to that.
Okay. It sounds to me that what you're suggesting, I mean, it sounds like it's two different things. It sounds like you're suggesting a panel discussion. And what we're talking, because it doesn't sound like a training to me. That sounds like a panel discussion, which would be great to me. And still be able to have the specific training, which to me would be focusing on us understanding what implicit bias is and actually recognizing the implicit bias within us so that we're able to work through that while we're dealing with ourselves, each other, or, and dealing while we're doing our cases, or just when we're having discussion about whatever. But I think what the cabinet would be asking for would be accomplished as a panel discussion, which would give us information on how other groups view implicit bias. So like what Lupe was saying, some people see that as a racial situation, and some people don't. I mean, to be honest with you, from that context, I don't really know the true context of that, but how it was said, I wouldn't necessarily see that as a racial thing.
Yeah.
It reminded me of, I'm just saying, it just reminded me of Ricky Ricardo. He used to say it all the time.
Babalu, yeah.
So it just depends. And I think from a panel's perspective, you'd have different people being able to tell us how they see implicit bias. And some people may say there's no such thing as implicit bias, and I'd like to hear from those people. But I don't think that's what the group we're suggesting. That wouldn't be their focus. Their focus would be to help us to understand what it is, and to look from within ourselves what it is. I think that's two different things, and I think both are valuable and important if we could do them both. That's it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that context. When you read the case before Wednesday, hopefully, the officer said, "You're in my city and in my park," to the person. Okay.
Just also as a reminder, this is a public meeting. We can't go into too many details.
Right. I understand. I understand. I'm not
Yeah.
saying names or any situations, just it was said in that context. So as you read the case, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I grew up with a lot of stereotypes about Hispanics, and believe me, I grew up in a really small town in Illinois, so I really, really got him.
And that might expose some of my biases, and that's what I think the training would do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to jump in, but Dennis, I know you said you wanted to respond. I was going to say, it sounds like kind of what we're hearing, at least from the training committee. Maybe what we do is we find whoever the provider is, we have a training, and then maybe as the second half of that, that 1-day session, maybe we have a panel discussion with several groups, and that way we get the training first, and then we have people sharing their experiences of what they found. Maybe that's the best way to solve the problem or the concern, I guess. I'm not sure. What do you think?
That's something that to be discussed, and certainly I will do that. And I said I wasn't going to say too much today, and I didn't really want to get into the work that you guys have already done. But there was that question about the training, and so I thought I needed to respond and let you know what the thoughts were from cabinet. I concur with persons who say that you create committees, and the committees make the judgments, and we don't dictate as cabinet what those judgments are. However, saying all of that, perhaps the discourse should be between us, and I would suggest that other cabinet members even at least hear what you've said today. I think Dwayne's observation that we can do both is a probable result of some of the discussions that we would likely have. The only part that I am concerned about is the time delay, because we're talking, I think it was August 21st that was supposed to happen. And so let me check with cabinet, and we will have a mass mailing, if nothing else, to hear what their thoughts are. Okay, is that fair enough? Is everybody?
Yeah, I think so.
With that?
Loopy, I see your hands up. Go
Oh, yeah.
ahead.
Could it be in 2 parts? I mean, we could divvy it up in 2 parts. It doesn't have to be like a whole day compressed, correct?
We
If
have,
we-
we're putting aside, what, 5 hours on this thing?
I think
Well,
that was the
yeah.
rough idea. So
Yeah,
I my preference for whatever it's worth is, I think if we're going to do the training immediately followed by the panel, I think that's where you'd get the most benefit out of it, because you have the
That's true.
recency to be able to take the lessons you've learned from the training and you can apply it to the experiences you've heard from people. I think having it together would be the best.
the
But
ideal. Yeah.
I know we also have to be, aware of scheduling and time commitments and all that kind of stuff.
Well, how soon will a panel be able to be gathered?
And
That's the next
that-
question.
And
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some respects, I think that's a Yasmin question as a community contact person. How much contact do you have with other agencies beside the art?
Besides
there?
who, sorry?
Muslim Arc.
Yeah,
So we put together a we put together 6 agencies, I think. Yeah.
and are those agencies what we're talking about in terms of representative of various, more than the 2 communities that Muslim Arc represents?
I'm sorry, which 2 communities does Muslim Arc represent?
When I read their profile, they represented largely the Muslim and African American communities and how they coalesce.
So that's the background of the founder. She's a Black Muslim woman from LA, but that's not what the organization represents. Like the
But-
work they do is not focused on Muslim and Black communities.
Well, that if you read their profile, that's how they advertise it.
I'm wondering if you got an opportunity to read their training description.
I read the advertisement that they have about Muslim Arc, and it was very specific.
Are you referring to the kind of about us portion?
I went through the whole description, actually, but that's neither here nor there. In here, what again, not to take all the time on this one topic, let me make the suggestion that you have made collectively, that it be a presentation and a panel. I'm with Brandon on terms of doing it at one sitting rather than trying to pair it off. But like I say, we'll get back. Hopefully we can come to some consensus agreement, which is what I will always try and deal with, this consensus rather than someone making a dictum.
I just want to put out one more thing, is that I'm refreshing my memory. I opened our side-by-side comparison of all the different groups that said they could provide this type of a training for us. And the idea was that the workshop would be just a couple hours
Mm-hmm.
to kind of start digging into our own selves, raising our awareness about our biases and providing some tools to how to deal with them so we're less biased in the work that we do. And
Mhm.
then there was an opportunity to have some follow-up sessions afterwards, because I don't think this is something it's a one and done. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. So the workshop portion wouldn't really take a whole 5-hour day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yasmin, I remember you reached out to them for a specific date and they were already booked on that date. And I don't remember what date that was. And I don't know if Dennis, do you know if the cabinet has already set something for the August 17th date? Because I thought that date was up in the air of what we would do.
Let me look at some notes.
Yeah, I think they said 2 dates because I just got a phone call today from Alina and she said, are you available the 17th or the 24th? Just in case.
Yeah,
Yeah, there were 2
that's what I'm
dates.
trying to do.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I just pulled up, and I can share this if we need to, but so the Muslim ARC, which stands for Anti-Racism Collective, the cost for the in-person workshop was $2,500. The CLU studio was another place we looked at. That one was for a 2-hour training. That was $6,000.
Mhm.
Culture Ally for 2 hours. That was $12,500. And then Sandra, and I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Thiederman, I believe. That was an hour and a half. That was $6,500. So part of it too is we were trying to look at budgetary issues as well. And I don't even know if we actually have an updated budget for the current fiscal year, but for last year we had, I think it was $20,000 or $25,000 set aside for training. And I'm guessing it might be the same for this year, but we'd have to have staff probably confirm that.
Let me suggest in a positive way that a lot of these things are negotiable. Whenever you deal with agencies will start at a point and you negotiate what's affordable. But-
We have been negotiating. These are
Yeah.
like the rock bottom prices that we got from these people. Yasmin's been going back and forth with them. This is not the first cut on the price.
Mhm. Okay. So what is our consensus tonight?
I think and I don't mean to speak for everyone, I'm thinking if we can maybe get a little bit more feedback from the cabinet, if they'd be comfortable using one source for the training, whichever source that is. Right now, we had currently looked at Muslim ARC, have them do the training, and then we'll have a panel discussion after that in the same day. I think is what we're coming to consensus on. I think, is that correct? And if I'm speaking out of turn and people don't agree, please,
No,
chime on.
it's what it seems to be. That's the direction where it seems to be going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. I'll get in touch with them tonight and try to get the information out tomorrow.
And we have to make sure that they're available, I think, for those 2 dates. I don't know which date they are going to choose, whether the 17th or the 24th.
Mhm.
And I don't know which date
What is
that ARC
the
was.
length? What is the length of their? I'm sorry. What is the length of their presentation again? Is it 2.5 hours?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
And we've designated 5 hours, right?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that also included either a 30 or 45-minute break for lunch as
For
well.
lunch. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Um,
I'll take it to the bridge.
the only thing that we're getting really close. If we're still trying to get to late August,
Yeah.
we have barely over a month to schedule it, get the training coordinated. And if I remember right, Yasmin, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you were the one that had these conversations. I believe the 17th they were not available, but we would still have to go out and reach out to various community members to speak on the panel. And I know with the very end of the summer holiday, people might not be in town, so that might add a level of complexity that we just have to factor in.
Yeah. And again, you have I mean, there may be some agencies or individuals that are available at little or no cost too. And but again, as the community engagement coordinator, I think that that's one of the responsibilities that you have for the
Oh,
commission.
Dennis, just so you know, that's already in the spreadsheet. The stuff that's freeze in the spreadsheet, we've done all this work that you're talking about. It's been done.
Okay,
Can I say something real quick?
sure.
Have you contacted the Chicano Federation, Yasmin? They've been around for almost 50 years in Barrio
Yeah,
Logan.
I'm connected
Okay.
to them, and I actually
Mhm.
had a conversation with them a few months ago about this very specific topic, letting them know that in the future we might be doing a panel focused on different communities and experiences, and I'll reach out to them for that.
And American Friends Service Committee, I think that's the immigrant committee.
I'm
and
also in
there's-
contact with them.
With them. Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and Yasmin, you have your hand up. Did you want to chime in
Yeah.
on something else?
I just wanted to really flag that or emphasize that a lot of, as you said, Commissioner Helpert, a lot of these groups are not able to be booked in a less than a month notice. Just like, quite frankly, when it comes to dates, my suggestion would be to reach out to the people we want to reach out to, see their availability, and then try to identify a date that works with the commission. It will be very difficult to find people in this short notice, and I'm also naming that I will not be available for the next 2 weeks. I'm taking personal time off, but I will work closely with our executive director, Parker, on whatever direction you all would like to move forward with.
Okay. Like I said, I will try and get back in touch with everyone tomorrow.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll go back over our notes, the other topics we had. Just kind of recapping, we did talk about the videos that I know the cabinet had shared that they were a little bit concerned about the time commitment on that. So I did share with an email the cabinet after our meeting last week how much each of those video series, how much time was required for each of those. Dwayne, actually, did you have a chance to hear from Tasha if she was going to be available on the 17th?
Tasha was saying she didn't know anything about the 17th.
My understanding was I thought someone from our staff had reached out to her, but I was obviously not part of that, so I don't know. We can regroup on our side and see if that's something that might make sense, or if not, we can figure out what we need to do.
Yeah, I mean,
What
I
was
asked
that? What was that for, Brandon? What was that?
We had the date of the 17th booked for the commissioners to do a training, and when Muslim Arc wasn't available, we were looking at other people that could help fill that time that we already had. So one of the options was Tasha has her Exhaling Injustice Foundation, I think. So she was going to possibly do one of the trainings, and I thought, and maybe I'm speaking incorrectly, so you have to correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we had reached out to her to see if she was available, and then after last week, Dwayne said he was going to reach out to her and see if she had heard anything. Yasmin, do you want to correct me if I misspoke on anything?
Yeah, I can clarify. The date we were reaching out to folks was September the 21st.
Okay.
August 17th is actually, this is the first time I hear that date in this space. So I think I wasn't looped in on that specific date. And once Muslim Arc was not available, my understanding was that we want to hold off until we make sure which group we want to move forward to before I reach out to everyone. Because it was between Exhaling Injustice or the youth training. That's kind of the last I had knowledge of, but maybe I misunderstood and something fell along the lines. Apologies if that happened on my end, but that was my understanding, that we're holding off. And then last commission meeting, I also was notified that we're moving in a separate direction when it comes to the implicit bias, but we didn't get a chance to speak. So I wasn't sure where that stood either.
So just so I understand, and maybe I took notes down wrong, is the idea now we aren't going to be doing that Saturday the 17th training? I think. Sounds like that's
Are
what
you
I'm hearing.
talking about August? What month are you talking about?
Correct, yeah, August.
Yeah, they have 2 dates. That's what I know. They're still trying to figure out between the 17th and the 24th. That's what I just found out today from
Yeah.
Alina.
Well, what I
And
thought,
then to do what on those dates?
well, that was the thing.
That-
Initially, I think the idea was the 17th was already put on the calendar like months ago. So again, August 17th. And then I think what we were initially going to try to do was see if we can do our implicit bias training on that date. Once Muslim ARC was no longer available, we were looking to have a plan B. And one of those options was possibly seeing if Tasha's organization could fill in for that space. But it sounds like we probably need to loop back with staff and just confirm, because it sounds like there might be a quorum issue on that 17th date. So maybe that's on hold. I'm not sure.
Quorum calls just took place today, so
Okay.
I don't have the update, but that just happened today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? The other thing I had on there was, I know, Darlene, you were reaching out to Sharon Fairley. Have you heard anything back? I know it was right over the holiday, the 4th of July holiday weekend. So when we had our meeting, I know we hadn't heard back. Have you heard anything from her at all since?
Yeah, and I emailed everybody that she said she is still available. And the next steps are we need to give her more information so she knows how to tailor the training.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard back from the cabinet or anybody else.
Well, I
Is
heard,
that- Is that
I-
September 17th? I'm sorry.
September 5th or 6th,
September.
5 or 6 of
Right.
September.
Alina just called me today about that too, at the 5th. So she wants us to see if we could meet on the 5th instead of the 4th, which is a Wednesday, because I think she's still going to be in town. That's what I gathered from Alina today. She just called me
Yeah.
like an hour ago about this.
Right, and the reason on Tuesday would be because the libraries are closed on, closed down early on Wednesdays.
Right.
And since we'll be meeting at a library, we're trying to change that date to a Tuesday.
Tuesday. I thought
Yeah.
the 5th.
No, you're talking about something totally different. The
Oh.
5th is a Thursday and the 6th is a Friday. Those are the 2 dates that Sharon Fairley is in town and
Okay.
potentially could do a training for us.
Right.
And that training is actually on what's already been approved by the full commission, which implicit bias has not been, and exhaling justice has not been. I'm not saying they're not great trainings and they will be approved, but like that's kind of a little bit of a point of order as well. But the Sharon Fairley training is on one of our lists. It's already been approved. She will be in town. It's the most cost efficient way for us to get her services. And she said she's still available, but we need to get rolling so she can get her proposal to us. It can get through whatever city channels it needs to get through. So she's an approved vendor. You know, this stuff takes time.
Right. And her presentation is going to be on bias or case review bias, or I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've read the whole sheet.
Hers was, I mean, it was the decision-making process.
Decision-making process. Okay.
Right.
Which is part of the bias training or separate?
I think it's separate, completely.
Separate.
Yeah.
Her focus would be on building community trust between,
Okay.
or building trust between community and governmental agencies, including us, an oversight agency in the city of San Diego, and kind of what are the experience of third party complaint submissions, etc. That was the initial conversation. This was almost 8-9 months ago.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. I
You're
think I
talking
remember.
about wait, you're
Tasha.
talking about Tasha. I was talking about Sharon Fairley.
Sure,
Oh,
sure.
sorry,
Oh,
sorry.
that's okay. I'm sorry. I'm confusing people.
Sharon
Sorry.
Fairley is more talking about how cases aren't black and white. You need to weigh the evidence, compare an officer's narrative against other evidence to reach a conclusion on what most likely happened. Basically, so that we know the things that we're supposed to be weighing when we do case review. So hers is specific for case review, the Sharon Fairley one.
Is she the one from University of Chicago?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
But I don't know where that's at. So I don't know,
So,
Dennis, if you have more.
The information we had Saturday was what you had provided, Darlene.
So I think maybe what we need to do is tomorrow, at business hours, let's check with Alina. Let's confirm availability and quorum issues first. Because I kind of don't want to keep going to people we're reaching out to for training if we don't know the dates, because I think I want to be respectful of their time as well. So I think we need to find out on our side, what days are we actually meeting, or can we meet? And then we can go out to them and see what their availability is. And I think because we're also trying to juggle so many different things, I think we're all getting a little bit confused on the various dates that are flying out. I know I am. And so I think tomorrow, let's work with staff. Let's find out what the exact dates are, and then we can try to reverse engineer that to figure out who's available on what days. Does that make sense for everybody?
Right, good.
Or does anyone?
And then related to the Sharon Fairley thing, I mean, if you guys want me to continue coordinating with her, which I'm happy to do, or if staff wants to do, or whatever, I don't care, but she needs more information from us. So we need to be able to tell her, because she said that one approach would be very technical, how to evaluate and weigh evidence when deciding a case. Another approach would be focusing on the dynamics of group decision making. So I don't know what we need more of.
I think now that we have a permanent executive director, I think I would like to get his feedback on that as well. And I had a conversation with him the other day, and he mentioned he was trying to get up to speed on everything that we as a committee have done. So I know he might have done today. I don't know. I don't believe he's completely caught up on everything that we've presented to the full commission yet. He just got access, I think, to the Google Drive. I think he said like Wednesday or Thursday of last week. So I would like to hear what his thoughts are, at least. Maybe he can kind of say, here's what I think is best. I know from the meeting we had last time, we were talking about kind of the creation of the new CBP with Measure B and all that. One of the comments that Andrea said was, case review is one of the least important things we do. I personally don't agree with that, but I think based on how we as a full commission want to move forward on that, I think that's going to dictate what we ask Sharon to do. I think if it's really case review is an important part of what we're going to be doing going forward, I think that kind of the first part of what you said is the most important. If it's really just kind of how we deliberate and do decision making as a group, I think that's another piece. So I think we need to, on our side, we have to clean our house first before we can ask a trainer to help us learn more of what we need to do.
And I think what a take home for me was the auditing part and the recommendations for change. That was really important for me. I don't know. I mean, case review is very important too, but I think audit, and I think that was part of it, right? Number 2 or 3. Yeah, that was the most important one too. But all the pieces are important, but I think audit and recommendations are important too. And so if she can put that in there in her syllabus, that would be great, or her outline. That's why I joined the commission, is to like maybe help for some change to happen, right?
Well, and I think part of it,
Brandon, can you summarize what our next steps are now?
I'll try. So I think one of the things is I will work with Alina and staff tomorrow to confirm the dates that we have quorum for commissioners. And then based upon that, we'll at least know the dates that we can try to set up training. Because I think there's like 3 different dates they're kind of rotating around there, and it sounds like there might be quorum issues. I think until we figure that out, we don't know. So I will do that tomorrow morning. And then I think, Dennis, you're going to consult with the rest of the cabinet about the idea on the implicit bias, on if we were to have, a single provider do the training, and then we'll have a group panel afterwards to kind of get community feedback and perspectives. So if we can get that, I think you said tomorrow, but I mean, obviously getting everyone together might not be easy. So maybe the next couple of days, that'd be helpful.
Well, I'm gonna be gone on Wednesday, so I better get it to
Okay. Well, that helps.
after Wednesday, I mean.
Okay. And sorry, I'm writing down notes. Okay. And I think based upon that, then we can figure out, then Darlene, you and I can try to work on rounding out the training and trying to get the providers for those different dates. If that makes sense. Like you can work with Sharon, and then we can, if we need to find someone for a date, we can see if Tasha's available with her group, or if Muscle Mark is available, because I think the date I thought they said they weren't available, I thought, and it sounds like I was wrong. I thought it was August 17th, but Yasmin corrected me and said it was for September. So I think that's the other thing too, is we need to figure out the dates we have and then kind of putting the puzzle together to make sure different people can be there at different times. But I think those are the main ones. Was there any other action items that I missed out on?
Can I get clarity on what next steps you would like me to do?
I think right now, I don't think you have any, at least not right now. I think once we hear back from the cabinet with a little bit of clarity of whether or not our proposed plan is something that works for them, then we can move forward on trying to get scheduling out. And until we have the dates, I don't think it really makes sense for you to start reaching out to any providers or community members, because I don't want to keep confusing them by giving them multiple dates and having things hop back and forth. So I think we need to figure those things out first before we can kind of set you down the path to try to help us coordinate all that. So I guess you're off the hook. Hold off for a few.
When are you leaving again? Next Monday?
I leave the day after tomorrow, so tomorrow's my last day at work. And then I come back August 1st.
Ooh. Okay. So who has your what we used to call Rolodex? Who has your contacts?
No one really. I mean, I have some of those contacts available on our shared information, but a lot of them are personal contacts.
Let me suggest that you create a list for Paul, and then Paul can delegate however it's going to be distributed and who's going to be contacted.
Can you clarify which list you would like to be created? I'm just wondering what information you're looking for.
The list of organizations that you would contact for this type of workshop. Because again, we've indicated that it's going to be very important that people know times and dates. So once we find the dates, it's got to be then contacting the people. And since you're going to be gone until the 1st of August, that's going to be a long time before we're able to contact people in your absence, which is why I'm asking you to provide that type of information, your list of contacts with Paul, and then we'll designate people who can do it.
So just to get clarity, are you asking that I identify 4 to 5 organizations for a panel of 4 to 5 people and share those contacts with Paul? Or would the committee like to identify these organizations and then I can provide the contacts? I'm just not sure what the ask is.
I'm not sure that all of us are aware of who you're in contact with. So if you can provide a list of those who you're in contact with, which I think probably is extensive, then we would have to discern which ones that we would be contacting prior to the presentation.
But I think, sorry to interrupt, I was gonna say, I think she's asking, the idea is for the panel, the community panel.
Yeah, exactly.
Experiences. That's who I think we're trying to get some contact people for.
Right. But there are, there are multiple agencies, and where one may be absent, one may be available. And so that's why we're needing a complete list that we can contact multiple people. And
I will check in with our executive director and see how we can move past this and figure it out.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, well, we're almost at 7 o'clock and I know it's almost dinner time for everybody. Does anyone have any final thoughts or questions?
I guess the only other thing I was looking at, and I hesitate to bring it up because it might feel like a new topic, is there was a presentation that Genevieve you were following up with Brandon on civil or human rights and law enforcement. I was wondering what the status of that is. That's back from June 17th.
Yeah. She's been really busy. So I've reached out to her a couple times and I will double check. I don't remember if I sent her an email and she replied back or vice versa. But I will follow up with her and see on that one. But there was a couple people. She's definitely interested in doing it.
Brandon John was somebody else that you were
Yeah.
also coordinating with. So you're still working on.
I will follow up with them again. I'm with Brandon John. I've had a couple emails back and forth, but I can restart that again. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, with that, I think we actually were almost exactly on time, just a little bit after 7. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and I will see most of all of you on Wednesday.
All right. See
Oh,
ya.
Right.
and then do you still want to meet next Monday, or do you want to cancel that one?
I would say I think we could probably cancel it. I think some of the information we're probably going to get from Dennis and the cabinet, I think we can kind of work on that offline. I don't know if we have to have another meeting, especially if we're going to have several people gone.
Okay.
So I will also.
I'll email Alina about that.
I was gonna say I can do that, but if you want to take that off my plate, that's
Sure.
great.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, then we'll
All right.
see you Wednesday.
All right,
And
bye-bye.
again, thank you guys for the work you've done so far. It's been great. I want to acknowledge that personally. You've done some great work. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis, and we appreciate having you here to be able to hear the feedback from the cabinet. It's helpful
Yeah.
rather than kind of having you
Right.
here rather than have to send an email and then wait for something to come back. It's great to have you here. So thanks for
Exactly.
joining us.
I'll try to be far more knowledgeable the next time.
So lots to learn. All
Here.
right,
Bye.
good night, guys.
Sure,
Have a great
bye-bye.
trip, Yasmin.
Yeah, safe